Let's turn today to 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 15. In our last study, we were considering how there is the possibility that in the body of Christ, because people have certain inferior gifts as they think it, they can have a feeling of inferiority in relation to other members in the body of Christ who have gifts which are more spectacular and which in their eyes is more effective and superior. But this is what Paul is trying to correct, that in the gift, in the body, there are no gifts which are superior or inferior. All are needed. There are different effects, different manifestations, and different ministries and different gifts, but all are needed. One may be the foot, verse 15, one may be the hand, but both are needed, and the foot need not feel inferior to the hand. The ear need not feel inferior to the eye, verse 16. And likewise, no member can think that he is all that is needed in the body of Christ. This is what's referred to in verse 17. And I can think, for example, that I am the most important member in the body of Christ. My ministry is the most important. My gift is the most important. And to correct that, he says, if the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? And this is to deflate the balloon of those who are puffed up with spiritual pride because of some spectacular supernatural gift that God has been pleased to gift them with. Likewise with hearing. Somebody can think, no, it's not the seeing, but the hearing, which is more important. Now we see how relevant this is to the situation today, where there are so many people with gifts and ministries who seem to have the feeling that their own gift alone is the most important. And then that leads to a despising of others and other ministries and other gifts. It says in verse 21, the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. The teacher cannot say to the evangelist, I do not need you. Neither can the evangelist say to the teacher, I do not need you. The person who is called to be a shepherd cannot say to the person who has a gift of healing, I do not need you, and vice versa. Neither can the person with a gift of healing say to the shepherd, I do not need you. And the spiritual man is the man who recognizes that however great and however important and however spectacular his gift, he still needs all the other gifts for the body of Christ to be manifested to the world, for the effective fulfilling of the ministry of Christ's body in the world. And not only that, he goes on to say here in verse 22, on the contrary, he says, contrary to all these exalted ideas that people with spectacular gifts can have, it is much truer, he says, that the members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary. Think of the weaker members of our body, how necessary they are. Which, he says in verse 23, those members of the body which we deem less honorable, on these we bestow more abundant honor. He first speaks of the weaker members, and then he speaks about those members which are not honorable. Verse 23. And then he speaks about those members which do not have a good appearance, the poor-looking members. So we have the weak members, the ignoble or common members, the ones without honor, and third, those parts of the body which are not so attractive. Now, when we studied 1 Corinthians 1, we saw how Paul told the Corinthians that God has chosen the weak things, the despised things of the world, to confound the strong and the clever. And here we see the same thing mentioned again. There are weaker members in the body whom God uses. The weaker members are necessary. Verse 23, those members which are considered common and ignoble, on them we bestow more abundant honor. In other words, we surround it with special honor, or dress it with special honor. And then the unseemly members, the poor-looking members, also have a deeper beauty in the work that they do. That is the point of the last part of verse 23, which our good-looking members do not require. That type of adornment our good-looking members do not require. Now, when we apply all this to our human body, we can see that there are certain members of our body which are used frequently, like the hand, the tongue, the eyes, the ears, which can come to have a certain honor because they are visible and their effect is seen. The face, for example, is what people admire so much. The features of a person's face, his eyes, nose, ears, etc. But there are so many other members of the body which are unseen. Consider, for example, the liver, and the kidney, and the heart, and many other internal organs, like the stomach. These are not visible, and even if they were visible, they are not very attractive. They are very delicate, easily injured. That's why God has protected them inside the body. The hand can take injury and stand it, but some of these internal organs, if they were subjected to the same forces that act upon our hand, they would be injured beyond repair. They are weaker in one sense. They are hidden. They are not so attractive. If you look at them, if you take it out and look at them, not so attractive as a human face, yet they are so necessary, in fact more necessary. And they have more abundant honor in the sense that when something goes wrong with some of these internal organs, it's a much more serious problem than an injured hand or an injured foot. We know that. And so God has composed the body, verse 24, in such a way as to give more abundant honor, it says in verse 24, to that member which lacked. This is God's way. He has given more honor to the member who lacks a gift, an apparently spectacular gift. It doesn't mean that the liver, because it's hidden and more tender, is not as important as the hand. Every part of the body of Christ is important. For example, in the church, the sisters may have a less obvious ministry, a less public ministry than the brothers. But that doesn't mean that their ministry is not important. The liver is not seen, but it does a fantastic job. The heart, for example, keeps on pumping day and night. It works even when the eyes and the ears and the hand and the legs have stopped functioning, as it were. Keeps on functioning. And there are people in the body of Christ like this, constantly working away in prayer and in hidden ministries, and thus the body functions. So no one should despise his gift because it is not manifest publicly. There are many members of our body, he says, which are poor-looking, unseemly, it says in verse 23, which means they are not something that we would like to uncover and expose, and yet they have a very important function. And so it is in the body of Christ also. Members that don't look so attractive when they stand on a public platform, but yet having a very important function to fulfill. That is to encourage anyone who feels discouraged that he doesn't have a spectacular gift or that he doesn't stand on a pulpit often enough. In fact, God has given him more honor. If he would only exercise his gift, if he would not bury his gift like the man who got 1 talent did, then he can do an effective ministry, fulfill an effective ministry in the body of Christ. And it says here the purpose with which God has made it like this in the body is, verse 25, that there should be no division in the body, but that the members should have the same care for one another. So here is a solution for all the division that there is in the body of Christ. What is it? Esteem the members that are weaker. Esteem the members that are common and ignoble. Esteem the members that are unattractive and less gifted. It's not easy to find a church where people with less gifts are esteemed. That's a sad thing. And that's why there is so much division. The common people, the poorer believers, esteem them, and then there won't be any division. And if there is division in the body, examine yourself and see whether in your church the weaker members are esteemed, whether the ignoble, poorer believers are esteemed, whether the less gifted ones are esteemed, or whether you only give honor to the gifted believers, to the ones who are rich, who have a high position, the clever, intellectual ones. Well, no wonder there is division, because that is part of God's judgment on a church that does not appreciate all the members of the body of Christ. God desires all members in the body of Christ to be esteemed, and he has so composed the body, it says in verse 24, giving more abundant honor to that member which lacks, so that there should be no division in the body. Unity is a gift of God in the church, and he gives it to those who follow his laws. And one of his very important laws mentioned here in verse 22 to 25 for unity is esteem the weaker members, the common members, the poor members, the unattractive members, unattractive in terms of eloquence or speech, less gifted members, less beautiful, less attractive, hidden members. Value them, esteem them, give them equal value in the body of Christ. Perhaps not equal ministry, but equal value, and then there will be no division. The members should have the same care for one another. This is God's will, that every member should have a concern for the other members of the body of Christ. So he comes to the fruit of the Spirit now. It's no use exercising the gifts if we don't have care and love for one another. If one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. If your left hand is injured, your right hand does something about it, is not jealous of it or proud of it. The fact that it itself is not injured, it helps in the healing of the left hand. Every member of the body works towards the healing of any injured part. And if one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. There is no jealousy in the human body. If a crown is put on the head of a king, the whole body rejoices. And so it should be in the body of Christ. Suffering together, rejoicing together. If only we would see this, Christ's body could again fulfill an effective ministry in our world, in our day.